A lot of times, we're fearful or we overthink or even just like the unknown about the future, like that oftentimes causes us to want to like stop or maybe not go after exactly what our heart desires or the direction that we need to be headed in.
So for me, the process has never been an if, it's just been when this really pops off, when this works out, when we get to that point. And I've always just approached things that way. And it's honestly, the process is just, it's a big adventure. It's just one long like adventure and discovery journey of twists and turns and ups and downs and curves that you never expected, but you become so much better in the process.
Hello, and welcome back to the Minor Detail Podcast. If you are listening in, thank you so very much. But if you are tuning in, if you're viewing, I'm so glad that you are here. I still can't get over that this is our first season doing a visual pod, and it just makes me so happy. It makes me so happy. And what makes me even happier is today's guest, okay? This has been a long time coming, but in a good way. You know how you meet people on the internet and y'all just click and it kind of goes from there. I would say my only grievance is probably our rival colleges, but I won't bring that up now.
No.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. But I'm super excited to introduce you all to Brittany Jack. She is here with us today. Listen, y'all, Brittany is a marketing and brand strategy phenom, literally. Anything brand strategy, anything content, anything digital marketing specifically, she is your go-to. And I am just super excited to have her be on the show today, not only to talk about her journey, but really the season of life that she's in currently. Because I think oftentimes it's easy to get on social media and see a lot of people's background and where they come from, right? But you're going to hear from the source today. You're going to hear from the root. And I'm so excited for us to just come together and learn. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. That intro was fire. Yeah, no, we'll talk about our rival colleges later. We won't get started on that. We will not start with that. But I'm super excited to be here with you today, and just this conversation, I can just feel and tell like it's going to be a great one. So I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's dive in. So we're going to hop to the nitty gritty. Honestly, I have my iPad here. Y'all know how I am. We have talking points, right? This conversation is super intentional. And I really want to, I won't say dive in from the beginning, but what is probably most true about you is that you've been in this space, in this marketing space for almost a decade at this point, right? Initially getting your start in corporate advertising and then eventually transitioning into full-time entrepreneurship. Take us back to where it all started and how that ultimately led you to officially going solo.
Yes. Okay. So I want to even start a little bit before my corporate advertising job. So I worked out of college. I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I actually ended up working at Lululemon part-time as an educator. And during that time, I really had the opportunity to explore kind of like my creative gifts. And so I ended up doing like email marketing for the store. I was merchandising. I was taking pictures and doing photo shoots with the ambassadors. And I was just getting my hands in all things branding and marketing and creative. And I really feel like that was the kind of eye-opening point for me and how I felt about it. And specifically how the branding and the marketing assets bridged with the education piece. I think that was really, and that was 2015. So we literally are almost at a decade, And so from there, got into working at a full service advertising agency here in Atlanta. Literally started out working on just like some smaller projects with them. Ended up working on household name brands, Coca-Cola, Sprite, Navy Federal, McCormick, Southern Company. Ended up doing some really amazing projects. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And it's crazy because at that time when I was in school, that was never discussed as like a potential career choice. It's like, oh, like you can have a full career with something creative. So ended up being there, working in an amazing agency. And my role actually, I think 3 years after, almost to my 3-year anniversary, my role, they told me that my role was being eliminated because one of the clients was just going to work with a different agency. They literally told me this 30 days before. They were like, yeah, your role ends in 30 days. So I'm 25, I think 24. I forgot. I was young, right? I'm still trying to figure out my life. I don't know what I want to do. And right when I think I'm about to have this like cushy corporate awesome career, that gets ripped right from under me. And I took it really personally at first. I really did. I was like, y'all are firing me. I can't stand you guys. How could you do this to me? This is the worst. But I will tell you, it's so funny, the timing of it. My last day was on May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
2 months prior to that, I really started feeling the pull, and I was like, okay, God, I really want to be like an entrepreneur. Like, I really think I can do this myself. And I was like, I'm going to quit my job on May 30th. And he was like, nope, May 1st. It was the same month, just 30 days earlier. And so I was like, okay, we're doing it. Let's do it. And when they told me I was getting laid off, I never even looked at another job board. I didn't think about another job. I didn't even kind of explore that aspect of like, okay, cool. I'm just going to go find, I'm in, like once you're in the corporate creative space, you can go to another agency, get something similar. That's easy. But for some reason, I just never wanted to do that. And here we are.
Yeah, because I mean, that's definitely my follow-up, right? Is typically when people are laid off or let go, or even like furloughed in any way, any type of unexpected, involuntary type of way.
Right.
I know my first instinct would be to go get on LinkedIn, right? Go get on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or tap into my connections, see what other roles are out there. But what I noticed just from following your journey thus far is like you never went back into the corporate space.
Never.
You never went back into that full-time corporate environment. So after leaving that role, did you always know like I'm going to stick around and stay in entrepreneurship? Or was it more like, well, I'm going to give this a try, and if it doesn't happen XYZ in a year, let's say, then I'll go back into corporate? What was your thinking there?
So my thought process was, because I was getting tapped for a lot of really impactful conversations and decisions. And essentially my last several months at the agency, I was in rooms that by portfolio and career stance at that time, I was not supposed to be in. So that was sending me a message of like, oh, people really value what I have to say. They value my opinion. They value my insight. I could probably do this on my own. Like I could probably do this myself. And because what happened is that they wanted all of that from me, but they were not willing to compensate me properly or give me the title that I deserve for the results that they were getting based off of my expertise. So I said, nah, that's when I was like, you know what? I probably can do this myself. If Coca-Cola is paying attention to me, I can probably go do this myself. And so it never crossed my mind to go look for another job, I just was like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. For me, my journey has been comprised of a lot of just small promptings. Like, let's just see what happens if I do this, or let's just see what happens if I do that. And I really think that where I am now is a culmination of just me following those promptings and just seeing. So it was crazy. I had the opportunity to go to, I would say, had been laid off officially full time for like 2 weeks, maybe a week, 2 weeks. And an opportunity became available for me to go to this conference in Houston. And my dad's side of the family is originally from Houston. And I was telling my parents about it, but I just got laid off. So I'm like trying to be conservative with the money I'm spending. Right. I'm not trying to do anything crazy. And I told my parents about it, and they were like, we haven't been to Houston. Like, we haven't been home in a while. Let's just go. Like, let's just all go. So we ended up making a road trip out of it, got there. It was some crazy giveaway that was happening at the conference, entered my name into it, ended up winning $4,000 at the conference that I was not going to go to. And I was like, okay, that gives me a little bit more cushion to really so then at that point I was like, you know what, let's just see. Cause I'm feeling a little bit better financially, whatever. Let's just see what happens if I do this. And We saw.
How aligned is that though? Like, I mean, you literally entered a contest that you had no
Mm,
like inkling that you might even win. It's just like, well, let me do this random thing. I feel like that's such great alignment, but obviously I would take that as a sign or an opportunity that like, yes, this is the direction that I need to be headed in, you know?
yes, yes. And that's what I took it as. It's like I have always looked for those small things along the way of like, okay, if I got this small like prompting to do this, I just need the tiniest bit of confirmation that this is right. And then it ends
Mhm.
up being this huge thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to be doing this for real. And so now looking up all of these years later, and it's just crazy how everything, literally each piece just like lines up as you continue to move.
No, and I love the mindset of let's just see because that's another big piece that I know that you could speak to very very greatly, very confidently is just trusting the process because a
Yeah.
lot of times, you know, we're fearful or we overthink or even just like the unknown about the future like that oftentimes causes us to want to like stop or maybe not go after exactly where what our heart desires or the direction that we need to be headed in. What
Yeah.
has trusting the process in your journey thus far, like, what does that look like for you?
Trusting the process. Literally, I just have always had this confidence in myself that no matter the result of something, I could make it work. And I know that I work. So I was never worried about anything else working. Like I never worry about, okay, I don't know if this is going to work or not because I know that I work and I'm willing to work to figure it out. So for me, the process has never been a if, it's just been when this really pops off, when this
Mhm.
works out, when we get to that point. And I've always just approached things that way. And you really have to take the process in those bite sized pieces. Like, okay, I'm going to make this one decision. And when this works, then I'll get to a point. And it's honestly, the process is just, it's a big adventure. It's just one long, like, adventure and discovery journey of twists and turns and ups and downs and curves that you never expected. But you become so much better in the process. And finding out who you are and exploring different parts of yourself. And it's just one big adventure and something to be enjoyed. It's not something to be feared.
I love that, and I love the brick by brick mindset or, like, step by step
Yeah.
mindset because I think oftentimes, and I know I can be guilty of this, is, like, we want it all and we want it now.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to think about the possibility that this thing might not be relevant in my life in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like we want this to
Mhm.
be the end result. We wanted to stop here. And, you know, we want to continue to breed success from this one thing forever.
Yeah.
Your journey is completely it's like the complete opposite of
Yes.
that mindset. It's
Yes.
being open to, you know, whatever the season brings, which I would love for you to speak more specifically about your journey this far. I know some of it, but for those
Yeah.
of us watching, listening in that don't, um, because there were such different seasons for you. There were such
Yeah.
different lenses of focus,
Mhm.
and I think that a lot of us could benefit from just knowing that it doesn't have to happen all at once, and you don't
Mhm.
always have to be anchored down to this one thing either.
Yeah, yeah. So I think my journey has been a lot of, I'll be honest with you, I do not like the word pivot. I don't like it. I played basketball and in, I
I'm
just,
sorry, I
there's
had to laugh when she was like, "I don't like the word pivot," and then as soon as she said basketball, I'm like, "Oh, actually, I hate that too." I didn't play basketball, my brothers did, and absolutely, like, man,
No, it's
man.
like there's bad things happen most of the time after you pivot. Literally, it's like you're either traveling, you're turning the ball over, you're getting trapped. Like there, good things do not happen after the pivot, and this is what. So I know the online space has like adopted that word, but no, no, mine is. It's never been a pivot. It's been we're going to get to this point. We've gotten to this point. We're going to throw the entire thing out of the window, take a few pieces, and then just make a run for it. That's literally been my approach to things. And massive shifts and not being afraid to take those shifts. I'll be honest, I'm in one now. I literally just hopped off of a client call and I was having a conversation with the client about the future of my company and things that I'm becoming passionate about as the world evolves, as technology, evolves. And I'm in the middle of getting one of those promptings again. It's like, let's just see if we do this, and it's worked out every single time. But I think the process there are going to be massive shifts, and the idea that you start out with and the business that you start out with and the brand is not going to be the one that you end up with along the way. It really does take time. And oftentimes you'll find that what you thought you wanted was somebody else's idea, or what you saw work for someone else, or what somebody else suggested, and it's not authentic to what you really want. And it's okay to not even really know what you want for real when you start something out. So I just think it's being okay with sitting with, what do I want and what does that look like, and not having the answer, but still moving forward, even not having those answers. That's the process.
Absolutely. So you went from initially getting your start in the online space as
Mhm.
a sort of like blogging a lot around like
Yeah.
where you were, your healing, kind of like
Mhm.
more in the lifestyle space. And then we won't say pivot, but transitioning
Yes. Yes.
into digital investment education.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
started off, I literally started this blog because I was going through a really heavy therapy journey. I mean, I was in therapy probably like 6 hours a week. I was in church really heavily. I just was at a point in my life where I was like, you know what? I literally I can't live this way anymore. So where some people ease into like their healing process, I just dove in head first. I was like, get all of this, get it out. I
Mhm.
don't care. Like, let's just do it all at once. And so I would get on my Instagram stories literally on Tuesday nights, because Tuesday night is where I would have the program that I was a part of. We would have like worship, and there would be a service. And then after that, you would have a literal support group that you would go to. And there were people in there dealing with real stuff, drug addictions, all that. And so it's like, oh, we're in here together really dealing with these real things. And that was the first time that I recognized that my trauma, my emotional, all that stuff was a real thing. And so I would get on my Instagram stories on Tuesday nights and be like, okay, this is what I learned about myself today. This is how I am rewiring how I'm thinking about things, and here are the resources that I'm using. And it blew up. But I literally was just like, hey guys, this is where I am in my life, and I'm sharing it. So that turned into a blog. Did that for a while, really, and I was like, okay, let's just see. So that turned into a blog. And then once I started getting some traction in the online space, and because I was diving into entrepreneur, so all this is happening at the same time. I'm going through this healing process, becoming a new entrepreneur, and I'm doing all of this at the same time. And I'm just taking people along for the journey because I saw it was helpful. So then I was like, well, I really am
Really
passionate.
quickly, what was the entrepreneurship? So that was, like you said, that was going on in the background. What was that specifically like in comparison to, because you were doing blogging and then you started doing your digital education, but what
Mhm.
was the entrepreneur space, was that still brand strategy marketing?
Yeah, essentially at the
Okay.
end of the day it was, but it was more
Yeah.
so everything that I've ever done has always been rooted in, how can I help other people? So when we talk about the shifts, I've shifted in several different ways because there's so many ways to help people. But that even still today remains a question, is how do I help people get from where they are to where they want to be? That's
Mhm.
what I love. And so it went from that, started out with, I'm helping people by sharing my healing journey. Then it's okay, cool. I'm helping people because I'm learned as a new entrepreneur, I'm learning and can teach you how to open up other streams of income for yourself, even if it's just a small one. Because at that time, it was a huge, you got to have 7 streams, you got to do this and da 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 da. But for me, I was like, okay, but for someone who can't do that large scale right now, what does that look like? And how can that
Mm.
still be helpful? So then that was like, okay, cool. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to help people do this. And so even though I've shifted, it's always been rooted in, how do I help get someone from point A to point B, or from whatever point to the point they want to be, and how can I do that and help them with that?
Got it. So that I mean, that makes total sense. It's like one of those things where you're kind of like root purpose, and it shows
Right.
up in different ways. It shows up in different ways throughout your lifestyle.
Yeah.
One of the other things that stood out to me as you were talking was that there were a lot of things happening at once, right?
Yes.
Like we just said, you were kind of on your journey, whether it be online, but
Yeah.
also in the background, just really trying to figure it all out. I
Yeah.
love that you just keep such an optimistic state of mind, because again, I feel like I would be freaking out in that
I
position.
was.
I've
I was.
been
I was. Yeah. I
yeah.
was, honestly. Hmm.
Well, so tell us a little bit about that, because I think that I don't know, it just looks so different for everyone. I've never been laid off personally, but I have chosen to quit a job and go
Yeah.
without a full-time job for a substantial amount of time. And there's so much like growth that happens in that process from like an individual perspective. Tell us
Yeah.
about that experience specifically.
Yeah, I would say for me specifically, I've never tried to put off the fact that I was afraid, terrified, actually. I've never tried to talk that down with inside of myself. I've always just wanted to see, even with this, what can I do? I have been terrified this entire time. And I know that people love getting online and looking like, even if we do have it all together, you can have it all together and be petrified at the exact same time. The two are not mutually exclusive. And so for me, I always let myself just be afraid, be uncertain, be whatever, but still do it because
Mhm.
the time is going to pass either way. So you might as well. So,
I love that. And I think that's such great advice, feedback, whatever. We carry a lot of weight and pressure on ourselves to have it all together, to have it all figured out. I mean, when the minor detail first came about, I remember I was just journaling and writing about what I wanted this brand to be and like how I want people to feel. And that was one of the things. Like, I just want people to feel like they don't have to have it all figured out, because they
yeah,
don't, right? There's no
yeah,
blueprint to any of this. There's no rubric. There are no instructions to life that say, okay, you need to move and operate in this type of way to get this type of job, or
yeah,
to live
yeah.
this type of life. We're really just all figuring it out.
Literally all figuring it out. And we all have such unique routes and paths that get us to, I would dare even say, a better result than what we initially planned. And so when you just keep that the main thing, you can continue to make progress and move.
Yes. And speaking of those seasons, I like to sort of I identify that season, and I don't look at it as like, oh, this is the only season where I'll experience this sort of relationship. But
Yeah.
I look at that season as almost like my hidden season, especially with God.
Mhm.
That was a very integral time in my life where I was getting super intentional in my walk with Christ. I was getting
Yeah.
super intimate with the Lord.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that stands out to me most now is like in this age, whether it be in the age of social media, in the age of technology,
Yeah.
instant gratification, it feels natural for us with platforms to want to be seen and heard and just
Mhm.
deemed successful in general. As someone who can, like I said, personally relate to being in that hidden place, it's easy to interpret that season as like you're falling behind.
Yeah.
Like you're not on track, you're not where you should be. You should be further ahead. Look at this person and what they're doing. Have
Yeah.
you ever experienced this tension?
Oh man, the last 2 years of my life, literally, I think I'm just actually now coming out of it because for me, it came to a point in my journey where I am no longer just doing things that I'm good at and prioritizing those above what God actually wants me to do. And I've
Mm.
even struggled with it this year. I've struggled with it all last year. You know, I tore my Achilles last year and that injury literally had me off my feet, not walking on my own for about 7 to 8 months, and which was jarring within itself. But there have been so many times in the last 2 years where I have felt irrelevant and behind and obscure. Um, and the only reason why that was happening is because what I wanted to be known for and what God wants me to be known for were not the same things.
Mm.
And I'm
Girl, talk about it, okay? Please.
it's
Just triggered.
yeah,
Triggered.
like literally it's you want all these followers. I'll just be honest. You want all these followers, you see these people growing super fast, you see them monetizing this and monetizing that and doing this and growing. Because I even had a period where I grew super fast and then it just stopped. And at that time, I thought it was because of some level of inadequacy that I had. But in all actuality, God was like, this is not what I want you to be known for. I don't want you to have followers about brand strategy and content marketing. I want you to be visible for me because of this. And now looking at the times that we're living in, even down to people just getting on the internet and saying stuff that's wrong. Like, this is not right. This is not in the Bible. This is actually not what that means. And having a passion for education, I'm starting to understand why I've been so passionate about the things that I've been passionate about for the last several years. And I'll be honest with you, even for 2024, for me, I am going to be pushing myself way, 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 way out there in terms of my faith, what I've learned. Because again, there are several things that I do on a day-to-day basis behind the scenes at church. People know me totally different in one context. Then when they follow me on Instagram, they're like, oh. And so what I wanted to be known for and what God wants me to be known for are not the same thing. And I'm finally at a place where I'm surrendered to what He wants me to be known for. And let's just see what happens.
That's so beautiful. And I knew that this conversation would go there, right? Partially because I framed it that way. But I mean, I've seen you grow, and because I don't know, I would say maybe the last year or so, we've probably been following one another, but I've seen the growth in not only your own personal, desires, purpose, intention, but also just like the message that you're sharing and how that weaves into, what kingdom building really looks like. And a lot of times it can feel a little tense because you have these interests here, and then you have these other, you love God and you have interest there, and you start to, I think really God just starts to put it on our hearts to bring those two together and really get intentional about how we're delivering on, not even what we look like to others externally, but like how we're literally walking in our day to day. So it's just so beautiful to hear, because I think that a lot of times we don't want to be hidden. We don't want to go away. I feel like I'm in that season myself. I'm still here, but I'm just not operating in the same capacity that I was before. Like my desires are being refined. And then, like you said earlier, what you want to do is just not in alignment with God, what God wants you to. And maybe it's now in this season, because the followers and the monetization and all those things, they can come and they likely will come. But I think a lot of it is about getting grounded in your intention and in your heart posture at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what it was, because the biggest thing for me, the question was, why do you want this? And that's one thing God asked me. He's like, why, for what? Like, anybody can do that. Anybody can get on. I mean, we've seen it. People can just get on social media and blow up, but that's all they have. And God is like, I have so much more for you, so much more to do for you, so much more to do through you, that if you just settle at that, and if I allow, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that God don't let me do certain stuff. People, it's like, dang, they can do that. Why? He literally will not let me do certain things. Like, won't just not have, like, will literally stop it. And I'm like, I really cannot do the stuff that y'all be doing. And so I think it was a literal like halt on everything that I wanted to do, because He was like, no, that's not what we're doing. And so the more that I go through this season and continue to surrender to what He actually wants to do, now I'm seeing that traction. Now I'm seeing the opportunities. Now I'm seeing this, and it's crazy because it's the stuff that I wanted to do anyway. That's the part. It's like, it's so wild. It's like, God is like, I will give you that and this, like, but do what I want you to do, and all of that will come with it. So it's crazy. I'm literally in the middle of it right now. It's literally crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I meant when I said, like, it will probably come. It's not on the time and in the way, shape, or form that you imagined and you thought. And it's, at the end of the day, it's always for the greater good.
Yeah,
I think one thing that came to mind when you were just speaking was that I lost it. Because I was like, you were talking, I'm like, yes, I wish I had a notepad. It's fine. Well, it'll come back to me. We'll go back to it. But what I do recognize is that, like I mentioned before, you are definitely in a new era. Like, it's almost
Yes.
like you're coming of age, like you're stepping out, you're betting on yourself. And witnessing it has honestly been beautiful, because to step fully into your gifts and bet on yourself as someone on the outside looking in, not only is it inspiring, but it's empowering. And it's just the reminder that we need to show up, every day. And this is exactly the direction I was thinking, because I had went to Bible study recently, and the person teaching for the day, he was basically talking about how oftentimes what feels like pressure or development and growth, like it feels similar to suffering. Like it feels just as hard as suffering. And so we get the instinct to want to stop, or we get the thought where it's like, okay, this feels too hard. I don't know if I should be doing this, because it feels like it's not coming naturally.
Yeah.
Have you had those experiences, or even like you said, you're in a season similar to what you're describing? Are you experiencing those emotions where it's hard to push through, like it's hard to show up, but you have to do it anyway?
My current location, literally, I'm gonna drop a pin. My current location, I literally was. I had a meltdown literally yesterday, because in that season, it is so isolating, and it is so excruciating to sit under the pressure of development. And God will make it to where nobody understands what you're going through, and they can be there to comfort you and support you. But oftentimes we try to look for language outside of God. And I'm in that season to where only He knows what He's doing in my life. I can't, because I've tried, and I love my friends, and my friends are amazing, and I love my family, and I love all of but nobody can talk me through this. Literally no one. And He will make it that way so that you don't depend on anything else but Him. I have no idea how to articulate this season that I'm in right now, and how isolated I've been this year, and how much heartbreak and betrayal and misunderstanding and criticism that I've gone through this entire year, from the areas that I would have never expected it, the people that I would have never expected it. But I'm now on the other side of the mountain, where I'm like, oh, that's what you were doing. And we hear it's cliche, but the elevation really does require separation, and the separation is excruciating. But I've been in seasons, right, where this has happened before, and what happens after this is so good. So that's all I have to hold on to. It's like, okay, I've been in season. This one's different. But I've been in seasons before where I have felt isolated. I felt betrayed. I felt alone. I felt misunderstood. I felt obscure. But then what happened after that was crazy. So let me just kind of see again. Let me just see. But that's where I am right now. I mean, we're going into 2024, and relationally, nothing looks like how I thought it was going to look from any standpoint. But then things are taking off in the area of purpose. And it's like navigating all of that is excruciating, but it's worth it. So.
So good. So many things said. I'm like, I can't interrupt you because you're on a roll. But I think I want to go back for a second to where you were speaking about. You were speaking about the fact that no one understands what you need. I 150% get it. So much so that when things have been happening in my life and I want to pick up the phone and call somebody, God, the Holy Spirit has literally been like, come to me first. And I'm like, oh, like I get chills saying it, because I'm like, you're right. I don't know how to make this business decision right now. I don't know which way I should turn. And I want to phone a friend and get their input and see what they think. But God is like, absolutely not. You come to me first. And I'm just like, well, what do you want? Because all I've got for you is I don't know what to do.
What do you want is literally accurate. Like, what do you want? Because what are we doing?
What are we doing? And I swear daily, I also have been on a fast since I think like October 30th. So we're nearing the end. About a month-long fast or so. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to take in the fast is like depending on God daily for provision, but
Yeah.
also taking things one day at a time. And I
Yeah.
think having that relationship and building that relationship is really what has taught me to lean on God in those moments and to not go to Google, to the internet, to Chat GPT,
Girl.
to as crazy as it sounds, because I love me some Chat GPT, but you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like to
Yes.
really to have that check-in moment first.
Yeah, I think that's yes, 100%. Because the way I have wanted to phone people, but I can't even, because it's like you phone them and then where do you start? We need 2 hours because I have to start all the way. Like it's no way to articulate what I'm going through, and literally nobody gets it. And then I get frustrated because nobody gets it. Then you can just go down that rabbit hole instead of just being like, God, this is where I am. I sat there yesterday. I was like, this is terrible. I do not like this. I don't understand it. And what are you doing? But also, let's do it. Like, that's where I am, literally.
This is terrible. I do not like this. No, absolutely. So listen, you're on a roll. I know you mentioned going into Q1 and things are looking differently, but you literally have done the most in the best way possible this year.
Yeah,
Literally
yeah, yeah.
launching your lifestyle brand clothing line, Six
Mhm.
and Wonder, which by the way, if y'all have not noticed my hat, this is a part of Brittany's shop.
Yeah,
I just so happened to throw it on before this, a total coincidence. But
yeah,
from literally launching your shop to launching your new website, which I
yeah.
recently saw got like what 10K unique views within the first couple days, first
Yes,
48,
it
72
was
hours.
crazy. Yes.
It's the behind the scenes of those things, like I was mentioning earlier. Like I'm in such a behind the scenes season myself right now, but it's a
Yeah,
behind the scenes foundation laying to those things that make the launch, that make the moment possible. And like we were talking about earlier, like you're in your coming of age, you're in the season where you're betting on yourself, you're
yeah.
fully walking into your gifts. What do you think contributed, or what were like the top factors that contributed to you getting to this point now?
I would say the first one was honestly my injury, because it allowed me the time to sit down and really, I literally could not walk. So it's like, what are you going to do when you have to sit down all day and just sit with yourself and be with yourself? So I think that's where it all started for me. It's just having that time to reflect and to really dig deep into what I actually wanted and what I envisioned for myself. I would say the second thing is just being okay with being me and not having language yet for who I am or where I am. There have been so many seasons where, again, I've just felt misunderstood. And I feel like I misunderstood my own doggone self, if we're being honest. It's like, girl, who are you? Like, what? Like, what? I think the biggest thing, the springboard, the launching pad, if you will, is just being okay being obscure for a season, but also being okay with just being behind the scenes and not wanting to prove a point to anybody. It's like, okay, I'm growing. I got to keep this up. Like, you don't have to stay on the hamster wheel in order for you to get to where you want to go. And I think those are the two biggest things. It's like, and it's crazy because it sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive. Oh, I have to stop. I have to slow down. I have to allow myself to be processed. Yes, because after that, you're shut out of a cannon and you don't have time to be trying to get it together once that happens. So yeah.
Yeah. This randomly just came to mind. Do you work alone or do you have a team
I have a
behind the
team.
scenes?
I do. I have a
Okay.
team. And that's even been a thing where it's stretching, because I'm going to be honest with you. I was terrified of building that out for myself, just because I've heard horror stories on the internet and people are weird, and it's just, you just never know. Like, you literally just never know. Right. But one thing I'm so grateful for in this season is my team, is that they're not just my work team, but these are people that legit can pray for me. And then I could be like, hey, I'm going through this level of spiritual warfare right now. Can you please pray for this and this and this? Oh, and that's why I'm having to push this back. It's people that understand the totality of who I am and just rock with it and they get it. Like I was telling my friend the other day, I can't afford to have anyone in my life right now that is not praying for me and that cannot cover me, because what I'm called to do, it won't work if somebody is over here playing. So yeah, I have a team.
That's so real. And I think that alignment is so important. And it's not to say that if you don't have that, then you're doing it wrong or right. Or, you know what I mean? I think that it's something that's necessary for you. And I 100% totally agree. As I expand on my end, I think that having that relational support beyond just, surface level day to day is so important. Having like-minded lovers of Christ, of Jesus, it just hits different. It hits different.
Yeah, it does. It does. Cause I'm like, listen, I was up all night doing this, or I just, I've been stirred and and, to be able to talk to someone like my assistant, incredible. And she's like, you know what? Yeah, because this is what I'm getting. And then it gives me language for what it hits different. It's very different.
I love it. I love it. Well, before we officially close this conversation out, I did want to ask, are there any projects working on or that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Yes. So while we're on here, shameless plug, I am launching a podcast in Q1 of 2024, but it is specifically going to be for faith-based entrepreneurs. And so it's going to be a merging of business and how that intersects with what we're called to build and how we're wired, and helping people get language to understand who they are. But it's not going to be like surface level, like, oh yes, faith without works. Like, no, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it. So that's probably what I'm most excited about for 2024.
That is super exciting. I mean, as someone with a podcast, it's super fulfilling. It's hard work, but it's super fulfilling. Yes. And it's just like, it's an extension of yourself that I think just knows no bounds. Like, it's evergreen. It's always available for anyone to tap into. I love podcasting. I love listening to podcasts. So I'm super excited. And those of y'all listening and tuning in today, make sure that y'all are on the lookout. We don't have the name yet, but Q1 of 2024, which when y'all hear this, it will potentially be launched. Yes. Now that I think about it, but be on the lookout.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it. Well, as you know, the brand is titled The Minor Detail. I would love to know from you, if there was a minor detail that listeners could walk away with today, what would that be?
The minor detail would be, do not be afraid to be seen in whatever season that you are in.
Ooh, that is good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in, but that is good. That touched me. Continue.
Don't be afraid to be seen figuring it out. Don't be afraid to be seen being hidden. Don't be afraid to be seen successful. Don't be afraid to be seen vulnerable. I think just being okay with being seen that's the minor detail.
So beautiful. You couldn't have left us with better words. It's the best parting gift. Brittany, thank you so much for joining, for being here today. I can't wait for us to just continue this journey, because it won't stop here. I am rooting for you. We're all rooting for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those of you tuning in, until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Yay. Beautiful.